Today on Warframe Wednesdays, we're going to be taking a look at what I believe to be one of Digital Extreme's greatest achievements with Warframe. As a free-to-play game, DE had to find a way to monetize their experience post-launch. If you've seen Daniel Dwyer's no-clip documentary, which I strongly recommend you watch it if you haven't, you'll know that they went through some rough patches. They had some difficulties along the way, they even created a slot machine on accident, but they recovered from that, they learned from that, and they went on to create the monetization system we have in Warframe today. A system that I believe to be not just one of the best systems in free-to-play, but the best systems in the industry, period. That includes some of the monetization systems we're seeing in pay-to-play $60 games today. I like to look at free-to-play like this though. You either build a mandatory monetization system or a voluntary monetization system. Mandatory systems are what we typically refer to as pay-to-win. The idea that the developer, the publisher, have implemented systems in their game that essentially force you to spend real-world currency to have the same experience as everyone else. Occasionally, these games will allow you to earn some of these items through an in-game grind, but sometimes that in-game grind is made so substantial, so difficult, so time-consuming that you feel like you're required to spend real-world currency. And in some cases, the games really are pay to win in that if you buy something, you become more powerful than another player. Fortunately, with Warframe, we have a shining example of a voluntary system. The idea that the developer has ensured that just about everything, especially the things that affect gameplay, can be earned in-game in a reasonable time or purchased with premium currency. Now the big kicker here is that in the case of Warframe, that premium currency that you could spend real-world money on can be earned just as easily through in-game play. The idea that you can actually sell in-game items for premium currency, for platinum in the case of Warframe. There's a learning curve behind it and you have to understand the market, but just about anybody with one of the many guides on YouTube and a little bit of time and effort, a little bit of commitment to the experience, can start selling and making an actual sustainable profit of platinum. Plain and simple. You can sell items in-game and earn a lot of platinum on a regular basis if you're willing to put the time and effort in. And really it works in a rather nice curve. The idea being that the more time you put into the game, the more of a chance you have of actually understanding how to sell things for platinum. Therefore, at endgame, further down the experience as you're 100, 200, 300 hours into the game, you're not in a position where you feel like you were forced to spend all this money along the way because you just kept selling things for platinum. It's a beautiful market that has been created by DE and the community, and it really is that third option for gaining access to equipment inside of Warframe that further sets it apart from other free-to-play experiences. In fact, one of the only things you are forced to spend real-world money on in Warframe is Tenogen content. Tenogen are skins, cosmetic items that have been created by the community and then voted on by the community to be implemented into the Warframe experience. The reason that these are premium only or purchased with real-world money is because that money goes in part to the people who actually created that content. It's one of the best systems in a game ever for saying, hey, let's get the community involved. Oh, and by the way, you're artists, you're creators just like us, so of course we're gonna pay you for your work. It's incredible. It's a beautiful thing, and it's one of the reasons I actually like buying Tenogen content. Not only does most of that stuff look amazing, but I know that I'm supporting the community who put so much time and effort into creating that content. And that's really what I wanted to hone in on today, is the cosmetic side of Warframe's monetization or free-to-play system, because really DE is doing it better than anyone in the industry, again, including the big pay-to-play AAA $60 experiences. This is something I've really been stressing about over the last 2 years now as we've gotten more and more into the realm of, but it's just cosmetic. The idea that these $60 games are okay in selling as microtransactions as long as they're cosmetic. There are certain experiences where I would kind of be okay with that these days. But when it specifically comes to shared world games like Destiny, The Division, like Warframe, the idea that cosmetics have no real value, they have no substantial effect on the player experience, has a whole lot of hoo-ha and nonsense. They absolutely do, and anyone who spent any time playing MMORPGs like World of Warcraft knows just how valuable a cosmetic item can be. In fact, there's a very good reason there's a transmog system in World of Warcraft now, because players want that one specific look for that sword. In fact, Diablo 3 did the same thing. You know, you got those really killer boots, but you want them with a better stat, right? visual customization matters so much. And in shared world experiences, when you're hanging out in Orgrimmar, pulling out your dragon that no one else can even get anymore because it dropped in that raid and it doesn't drop anymore, you feel special. It's a bit of a status indicator of like, yo, check out my dragon, man, right? It's one of our favorite parts of shared world games, is getting together with our friends and saying, dude, check out my mount. Dude, look what just dropped for me, right? Cosmetics do have value. Warframe completely understands that. And where other games are putting far too many of their cosmetics behind these real-world paywalls, Warframe is ensuring that players have those options. Only, once again, putting the 10th-gen content behind a paywall, and for a very good reason. Now, when we talk visual customization in Warframe, how it's represented, we are of course talking about what many of you Warframe fans know as Fashion Frame, Warframe's real endgame. The idea that when you get to a point in Warframe where you've done just about everything, you start chasing down cosmetics, color palettes, shoulder pieces, so on and so forth, trying to make your Warframes look as beautiful, as sexy, as wonderful, as intriguing, and as indulgent as you possibly can. You essentially create an experience where new players head into a social space for the very first time. They look at that player standing near the entrance and they say to themselves, wait a second, is that the same Warframe I have? That's an Excalibur? Why does he look so cool? I've got like racing stripes. How do I look like that, right? That's the Warframe cosmetic fashion frame experience in a nutshell. And it actually functions on a really outstanding curve. It has its own progression curve, just like the rest of the experience. The more time you put into Warframe, the more resources you'll have when it comes to actually customizing your Warframes visually. You know, the more options you'll have to fashion frame, if you will. But the thing that I really love about Warframe is that even at its most basic level, you as a level 1 player, a brand new Tenno, your first Warframe, your first set of weapons, you still have the same tool set. You may not have all of the options that other players have, but you still have the same tool set, meaning you can hop into the game with your bare bones Excalibur, with your, you know, your baton, your Lato pistol, your first melee weapon, whatever, maybe it's a bow staff even, you know, maybe you've got the bow. All of those items, including your Warframe, and maybe you've got a Sindana to start the game, maybe you've got a, you know, a chest piece. All of those things, right, can be customized with that first color palette you have to the same extent that anyone else can customize them. Again, you may not have the options, but you can take that first color palette and change all of the same options that everyone else can. Meaning that you can fashion frame essentially right from the get-go on a more limited level, but nonetheless you can. The game never excludes players because of a lack of experience or playtime or money spent from experiencing that customization experience. And that's what I love so much about Warframe. It demonstrates a true respect for the power of cosmetics. And it all comes back to what I talked about earlier, voluntary monetization. Because when you have a system as good as this one, you're eventually going to have players who have put in 100, 200 hours, who maybe at most, let's say, because of the slot system in this game, right? Let's say you spent $20 to get additional slots. So you could have all of your Warframes and all the weapons you wanted, right? Maybe you didn't learn how to sell things for premium currency yet. You wasted your initial premium currency on something a little bit more unnecessary, if you will, like so many of us do, and you spent $20. Still, you're at 100, 200, 300 hours into the game. You're probably going to find yourself in a position much like I was, where you say to yourself, well, I haven't spent a dime and this game's giving me a lot of enjoyment. I think I'm going to buy something. I think I'm going to spend like some real money. And if you're fortunate enough, you might have just gotten a coupon from DE, because those drop actually a lot, 25% off, even a 50% off coupon for platinum, and you get a whole stack of platinum at 50% off, 25% off, and then you go on a little spending spree and you buy that Sindana you wanted. Maybe even spend some real world money on some 10-gen items like I've done, because you want to support the developer. You want to support the community. You want to support that experience long term, because they've done enough to earn your respect as a player, as a member of the community, and as a consumer. You made, when it all came down to it, a voluntary monetary purchase. It all comes full circle, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to do this video just because I see so many new players in the comment section of my Warframe videos wondering if the game's pay to win, you know, trying to wrap their head around those systems, just not understanding how or why people praise the free-to-play as much as they do, and I feel like this discussion does at least a decent job of setting you up for understanding why. And also, I think, again, it's just a very important discussion for us to have in the industry right now, where so many games, especially these $60 games, are putting way too much of their customization, their cosmetic, their visual customization behind these paywalls. Like, listen, I get it. You want to, like, give people free map-focused DLC like Titanfall 2 did, right? You got to have some form of monetization. But you really need to ask yourself, what should we monetize and how much of it should be monetized? And what sort of options are we giving the player to acquire this monetized content? That's the big one there for me. Options, options, options. You can sell cosmetic items in your first-person shooter, but you got to give the player options. You got to let them grind out a lot of the content. You got to let them acquire a lot of that content in-game. You got to ensure that there is an ample amount of variety and, again, options for how they customize their character before you start throwing things behind paywalls. It's a huge issue Destiny 2 has right now. It blows my mind when it comes to things like sparrows and, you know, emotes. Things that could be so significantly powerful if the player could acquire them out in the open world are just needlessly thrown behind the Eververse. Warframe deserves all of its praise for its monetization system, and again, not just because it's a free-to-play game, but because it just does monetization right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to leave any of your thoughts down in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next one.
You have been brought here for a purpose, the most important task of your lives.